Hey, it's Soul, bringing you guys the World of Warcraft. It is January 13th, 2017, and it's Friday. It's time for me to take this week's news and smash it into just a few minutes for you guys. The long-awaited 7.15 patch is finally out, and to support it a few days ahead of time, Blizzard released patch notes. And then they did it again, and again, and again, and again. And I think again. So I've got to say that it's kind of off-putting that you put out so many patch notes that, well, you should probably have patch notes for your patch notes, you know what I mean? For the most part, the patch delivered what was intended. We have a couple new modes, we have the Brawlers Guild, we're gonna have the time walking stuff coming soon, as well as the micro holidays, and of course the doom and gloom, the rivers of salt and hate coming from mostly the hunters this time around, from the apparent pretty big DPS loss that they're experiencing, at least at the moment. One controversial piece of information that was going to make it into the patch, but ended up being hotfixed out pretty much on its deployment, was a PvP change that would have allowed rank 35 artifact weapon trades, like, you know, like the 5% plus something buff to your weapon, that was going to be enabled in instance PvP, which brought the PvP community into, well, you know, rivers of salt, blah blah blah. This one to me felt justified though, because the new PvP had just started, and then all of a sudden Blizzard's like, oh yeah, by the way, hope your artifact weapon is like super maxed out and they don't have the advantage. Thankfully, Blizzard did respond to the outcry and they reverted the change, but the change is going to come in the next season, so players, you probably have like a month and some change, probably a little bit longer to get yourself prepared. And as a reminder, if you have a brand new character or if you have an alt that you're just rolling up, you can get yourself to Artifact Knowledge 15 fairly quickly, or you can boost yourself up to Artifact Knowledge 20. So hopefully those conversations about grinding for artifact power are going to go away. It is so not going away, let the hatred just flow. Something that was missing from the patch and the patch notes, and well, wasn't really given a lot of mention at all, was the possible changes to the WoW token. It was reported quite some time ago that through data mining, there are certain strings that kind of suggested that the WoW token would be tradable for Battle.net balance. This of course caused a lot of speculation to go on, and as a result, the price of the WoW token has been steadily growing up since. And if it's true from what I'm reading, and I have not verified this, so, you know, don't take my word for it, it appears that you can buy an unlimited amount of WoW tokens now. But even if that's not possible, but you still can't trade the token in for Battle.net balance, I don't think that's really a big deal. I just think it's kind of fun watching players scramble about, you know, speculating and trying to figure out what's going on and, you know, seeing how they can possibly maximize their gains. Hopefully in the coming weeks and months, Blizzard is going to respond and make an official announcement about the token to balance exchange, and then for some, Blizzard games will be free for life. Meanwhile, I'm sure that a lot of folks are going to get pretty pissed that they're not going to get free games for life. My immediate advice is to sell hardened Felglass if you're an engineer. That's going to make some pretty decent money. But not for long, because next week the Nighthold raid is opening. Woo! So how about that trailer? I kind of would have expected something coming in really soon, if not today. Today's Friday, by the way. Or just really soon. Apart from the raid itself, two very important things are going to be coming. One, and I do apologize for spreading false rumors, a new mini sort of questline is going to open up that will allow us to upgrade our current legendaries from 915 to 940. The quest starts in Dalaran, and you just need to do what you're normally doing. Do mythic dungeons, do raids, whether it's LFR or normal or whatever the heck difficulty, and do your emissary and your PvP weekly quests. So thank goodness, much easier than farming the soul whatever things. The other is that we're finally going to get tier gear. And by let me tell you how that's going to work. Let me remind you guys that the default loot system is the personal loot system, which a lot of casual guilds or casual groups tend to pick up, such as mine. The way that it's going to work is that under the personal loot system, this took like 8 takes. If tier drops, it's going to be automatically assigned to a player and it'll automatically unlock. So like, let's say a boss dies, the tiers are going to go to a shaman, it's automatically going to become like shaman gear, so you can't trade it to say like a hunter, warrior, or monk. Of course, under other systems like the Guild Master Looter system, it's going to be just like before. You're going to get a token, you're going to be able to trade that around with whomever. So I haven't really finalized this conversation with my guild yet, so I guess, pal, if you feel like chiming in, go ahead and comment. Yeah, a great way to manage your guild soul over YouTube comments. But here's my question, have you guys talked with your team about how you want to do maybe change your loot distribution? Or are you guys already doing like group or, you know, Guild Master Looter or whatever other system? I'm a little curious to hear from you folks or possible raid leaders or guild leaders. You know, what are your thoughts on tier coming back in, and some of the social nuances, if any, could come with that. So the other day I did a video to try to promote other WoW YouTubers. During that video I was talking about paladin tanking and how I don't really look at paladin tanking guides or videos or really specific guides with that sort of focus. I tried looking around for some and I didn't really find a whole lot of up-to-date stuff. So that got me excited. Here's what I'm gonna do. I don't consider myself the most competent raider or paladin tank, but I'm gonna try to fill that space as best as I can. I stream all of my raid nights on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, but I know that, well, it's a boring stream, and on top of that, there's a lot of other people that are probably raiding or doing other things during that prime time too. Or you watch better channels, duh. But what I'm gonna do is take some of the encounters and kind of break it down into a segmented video, and it's gonna be kind of a paladin tank slash raid retrospective of how we do the fight. I have no idea how it's going to work out or how successful it's going to be. I might even do older raids like Trial of Valor stuff, so I can kind of work out the kinks in the format and just kind of do some practice, but I mean, stay tuned for that, and hopefully it's something that you guys enjoy. Or even better, if you find it useful and it helps you guys improve your game or be interested in being a pally tank. Because they're the best, better than the leather tanks. Yeah, weak burn, okay. On Thursday, there was yet another Q&A with Josh Allen, aka Lore, and Paul Cubit. Paul, I would say, is kind of responsible for a lot of what on with the professions in Legion. But he and Lore took questions that involved the 715 patch, specific to the features of the patch and not so much the class changes. Which I think is good. I remember Ian Hazakasas was talking about in the previous Q&A, he was talking pretty much exclusively about class changes. And in retrospective, he was like, you know, maybe that wasn't such a good idea because it just got really specific and there just wasn't a huge audience to capture with that particular Q&A, unlike this one. So according to Twitch chat, hunters were of course extremely unhappy with the Q&A. But I think that for normal people who are just interested in like the high level features and some of the concerns involving those features, it was pretty useful. There was a decent amount of meat in the Q&A, but I'm just going to point out a couple of gems and notes that I took down. He mentioned time walking and how, like, let's say in the Cataclysm and other expansions, there are certain dungeons that just weren't included in the time walking rotation, such as the remixes of the Dead Mines and Skullomance. The reasoning, according to him in Blizzard, is that they wanted like the theme of that time walking, like in this case, Mists of Pandaria, they wanted the theme of the time walking to stick to that particular expansion. While Skullomance was revamped during Mists of Pandaria, it was more like a revamp, an uplift, unless there was, you know, panda-related stuff in Skullomance, and I don't think there was there? But he did hint at the possibility of taking all of these remixed dungeons and bundling all of those up into a sort of classic time-walking thing. So it'll be a little interesting in the next expansion when we go to Murloc Land and fight the evil metal Murloc army. Warlords of Draenor time walking is going to open up, and from there we're going to go to Upper Blackrock Spire, which was updated specifically for that expansion. One thing I don't agree with, and I think I talked about this in a video once upon a time, is that they didn't want to do anything about overlapping time walking or making the events more frequent. And it's not because I strongly feel that the Legion Dungeon weekly event and the time walking dungeon event should overlap. I don't think that should happen, but they did talk about removing weekly events too, and I don't think that should happen either. Like having more stuff to do on this platform, this weekly event platform, I mean, that's a good thing. I don't see a reason why you would want to outright remove something unless it was, you know, severely outdated. Personally, I think that if there was a meaningful overlap, and I'm sorry people that really like to do pet battles, but I think that's a less intrusive event compared to the other ones. I think pet battling can kind of overlap with some of the with some of the other events, including like PvP or dungeon running, things like that, and that'll allow a less painful rotation of all the other events, including time walking, which is a platform that's going to continue to grow if this game continues to release expansions. He talked about Nomi and how much everyone freaking loves Nomi. And Paul gave a cool developer retrospective on how they thought of secondary professions in Legion overall. They basically wanted secondary professions to be not as hands-on intrusive as primary professions, because the primary professions, those mostly involve quests. With secondary professions, they wanted to do sort of a mixed gameplay. He made the example of first aid being a random item drop throughout the Broken Isles, fishing has an artifact weapon, and cooking it uses the work order system. Despite that though, man, Nomi sucks, dude. I think it would have been cool, and of course, you know, hindsight is 2020. It's just retrospective. I think it would have been cooler if they had done recipes just behind world quests, like the well-fed animals. They happen to drop a recipe, or you know, at any of the other emissaries where they ask for like a whole bunch of food, and then you get the rank 2 and the rank 3 recipes. I think that would have been fine too. I said it many moons ago now, but to this day, it still kind of disappoints me that cooking is the one profession that I can recall in like any time in WoW where you put stuff into it and you can get nothing out of it. Finally, they talked a little bit about the prices of gathered goods and otherwise profession goods in general. And lore seemed to make a lot of mentions about the time investment that it takes to, you know, farm a certain thing, and how that, unlike the Warlords of Draenor Garrison, gave a kind of monetary time value to whatever you're picking, or mining for, or skinning. And they basically said that that is why things are a lot more expensive than they were in the past. And I halfway agree with that statement, but what he failed to talk about was the fact that in Warlords of Draenor, and heck, in every other expansion, including now, including ones in the future, people consume stuff really fast. Players still have the mindset, and it might have wavered a little bit because of scarcity, but now it's coming back again thanks to the Blood of Sargeras vendor. Players pretty much expect to pop a Potion of the Old War or a flask of 1,000 something or others, you know, at every opportunity. And that's okay as long as there's a market to sustain it. I think it was a valid concern before where the scarcity was a little bit too high. People were consuming things a bit too much, and pricing and the economy got a little bit out of control. At least just a little bit. I think it would have been more worth it to kind of let the economy stay in the players' hands, because despite how much players are complaining about prices, there is always an economic solution to having expensive goods, and that's just to farm it yourself. So I'm a little concerned about what they want to do about professions in the future, but one thing that I'm kind of okay with is doing something about the Tomes of Tranquil Mind. It does make decent money whenever it sells, but for the material costs, at least in my observations, in my opinion, that there is a valid choice between using the tome and just hearthing and doing your thing and then coming back. It's very inconvenient for raiders and their leads, but it's something worth looking into. Last and probably not least, the 7.2 PTR is coming soon, or you know, soon TM, or soon. And that's the news. Man, I was talking a lot longer than I thought. There goes the whole idea of a quick digest. But thank you guys for coming. Thank you for making it to the end. If you enjoy the content and want to continue supporting me, please, oh please, hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks to all you subscribers that already have done so, and if you have any thoughts or comments or anything that you want to share, hey, go ahead in the thing below. I'd be happy to talk with you guys. But it's time for me to go. You guys have a terrific weekend. I am Soul. Stay breezy, guys. Get
it! Game over! Good job, team. Good.
We did it! My battery.
It's 100,000 gold to each of us.